We know that summer is when a lot of people travel. And so today, if you happen to be here from somewhere else, we welcome you. We also welcome our own parishioners and also those who watch this Mass from home. The Gospel reading that we have for this Sunday is a very beautiful reading. Actually, it is not one story, but two stories. We have a story within a story, and that's very common in the Gospel of Mark. So to begin with, we have a synagogue official named Jairus who came to Jesus calling for help because his daughter was dying, his daughter at age 12. Jesus went with the official to his house, but on the way to his house, they were interrupted by another incident. A woman having had some hemorrhage problem for 12 years came to Jesus, also asking for his healing. Although these two stories are different from each other, they are also very similar, and they are equal in narrative power and also emotional effect. If we pay attention to the details in this reading, we realize that these two stories are really beautiful stories. And they both have to do with one common theme, and that's life. So we begin with the older woman who has had her blood problem for 12 years. Now 12 is a symbolic number, but 12 is also something else, as I will come back in a few minutes. We are told that this woman had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors. To you and me, that statement does not mean anything. When you get sick, you go to the doctor, right? But you have to realize that back in antiquity, only extremely wealthy people were able to see the doctors. So from this story, it is implied that the woman was a woman of some social standing and also wealth, and yet we also know that neither her social standing nor finance was able to alleviate her suffering. But it was only when she encountered the Lord that she felt that healing touch. And also, within the Jewish heritage, for a woman to be childless and to die before giving birth to any child, that would be the ultimate curse. We know that because of her hemorrhage problems, she was not able to procreate. And when she encountered Jesus, life was restored to her. And so that's the story of the older woman. Once that story is over, Jesus continued to go to the house of the synagogue official. And before he got to the house, the young child at age 12 died already, as the gospel reading tells us. Now, friends, let me say something about the number 12. The woman was sick for 12 years. The young girl at age 12 was about to die. 12 is a symbolic number, but under both Roman law and Jewish law, 12 was also the legal age of marriage for a young lady. Back then, now we know that these days, kids at age 12, they don't know much besides video games. But back then, young ladies get betrothed and eventually get married beginning at age 12. So if we look at her story, we realize that it was a very sad story. A young child about to be betrothed and get married. A young child about to give life and to bring forth life. And yet, at that very moment, she faced her death. But then Jesus came, put his hand on her, and restored life to her. And by restoring life to the young girl, Jesus also restored that possibility for her to bring forth new life. We know that Jesus, throughout the Gospels, he does a lot of crazy stuff. He does a lot of unorthodox stuff. He allowed the woman with ritual impurity to come close to him. And he also laid his hands on a corpse, on a dead body. According to the law, all that was forbidden. And yet, in this gospel reading, we have a very compassionate Jesus in the face of human suffering. And as a side note, I think that's also a good reminder to the whole Catholic Church that we cannot always stick by the law. Sometimes we have to bend the law a bit and be flexible. I am very flexible in many regards when it comes to daily ministry. And I think that's a good lesson that we can all learn from Jesus. But that's only a side note. Coming back to my main point, these two stories have to do with life. Jesus restored life to both the older woman and the young girl. And life is something that has always been treasured in our Judeo-Christian traditions. These days, if you follow politics, you know that there is a big debate in our country about whether or not we should give communion to politicians who support abortion. Now, friends, I don't follow politics. Well, actually, I do. That's how I know what's going on. But you know, I really follow politics for entertainment, not to get mad. And these days, I am really confused. I don't know what to trust, what to believe, or whom to trust anymore. There are different arguments to both sides of the story. And I have listened to both arguments. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the bishops make sense, sometimes they don't. I think that we live in a very divided society, and we also belong to a very divided Catholic Church. And if people are confused, that is totally understandable, because I too am very confused by all these news these days. But whatever it is, I have to say that within our Catholic traditions, we have always valued and treasured life, and that is not going to change anytime soon. As a Catholic people, we have to support and, and promote life and procreation. In the first reading today from the Book of Wisdom, we hear that God did not make death, nor does he take pleasure in the destruction of the living. And Jesus, in the Gospel of John, in chapter 10, Jesus also said very powerfully, he said, I came so that they, meaning his disciples and his people, I came so that they may have life and have it more abundantly. And so, dear friends, life is what the gospel reading today is about, and it is also what our Catholic tradition has always been about.